Ago, on a cold dark night, there was someone killed neath the town hall light. There were few at the scene, but they all did agree that the man who ran looked a lot like me. The judge said, son, what is your alibi? If you were somewhere else, then you don't have to die. Well, I spoke not a word, though it meant my life. I'd been in the arms of my best friend's wife. She walks these hills in a long black veil, visits my grave when the night winds wail. Nobody knows knowing, nobody sees. Nobody knows but me. The scaffold high and eternity near, she stood in the crowd and shed not a tear. But sometimes at night, when the cold wind moans in a long black veil, she cries o'er my bones. She walks these hills in a long black veil, visits my grave when the night winds wail. Nobody knows knowing, nobody sees. Nobody knows but me. Nobody knows knowing, nobody sees. Nobody knows but me.
I am haunted by waters. Thank you for coming to A Shiver Runs Through It, the Ghost Gala. It's brought to you by the spells of Kim Anderson. Let's hear it. That's right. Judy Klein, Susan Carlson, Claire Leonard, Ken Stoltz. It is now my duty and privilege to summon a spirit. It is the spirit of Edgar Allan Poe. Word has it that Edgar is in the house tonight in the form of Mayor John Engen. Yeah. Think about it. Think about it, really. That attraction to the absurd, that sense of the uncanny, that fascination with the perverse. Isn't that Edgar Allan Poe? Isn't that our mayor? Really? Yes, yes. So without further ado, channeling Edgar Allan Poe in his reading of The Raven, Mayor John Engen.
I had originally intended on something very scary. I was going to read a transcript of a Missoula City Council meeting. But I understand there are children here. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door, "only this, and nothing more." Distinctly, I remember. It was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly, I wished the morrow. Vainly, I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow. Sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with the fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is and nothing more." Presently, my soul grew stronger, hesitating. Then no longer, "Sir," said I, or "Madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door." That I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door, darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the darkness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the word whispered, "Lenore." This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this and nothing more. Back into the chamber, turning all my soul within me, burning soon again, I heard a tapping somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mane of lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore, though my crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no craven. Ghastly, grim, and ancient raven wandering from the nightly shore, tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Much I marveled, this ungainly fowl, to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast above the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such a name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further than he uttered, not a feather then he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, other friends have flown before, on the morrow he will leave me as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster till his songs one burdened bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore of never, nevermore. But the raven, still beguiling all my sad soul into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of the bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight glowing o'er, she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee respite and nepenthe for thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, O quaff, this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent, or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate, yet all undaunted, on this desert land, enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aden it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels named Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or friend, I shrieked, upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's plutonium shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming. And the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadows on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. And that's a little drama for you, folks.
Land of Gold by Canty.
Thank you. For 3 days she lingered on the very point of death. Her face was a mask of confusion and fear, a wax-colored thing on the white pillow, and her breath came slow and difficult and painful. I can hear the sound of it still, the long moment of quiet when it seemed like the battle might be over, then the body gathering itself into one last paroxysm of effort, drawing in a teaspoon of air with a quiet rattle at the back of it. Then the silence again. For 3 or 4 months before, there had been nothing to hope for. Now I found hope again, hope for an end, for the body's surrender, but her body would not give up. In the silence, the body gathered again into its selfishness, its refusal to end, then the next breath. It's a strange thing to pray for the death of the person you love, but pray I did, though the prayer went unanswered. The silence, the gather, the rattle. Her mother came and went, but I stayed. A nurse from the hospice sat in the next room knitting. I watched, I waited, I wished, I wanted, fondling the wedding band, her wedding ring, that I kept for her on a chain around my neck since her hand had become too thin to keep it. After the first day, I couldn't tell if I woke or slept. Every waking hour, every dream suffused with the rasp of her breath, like some sort of clock ticking down. We were on the 5th floor and we could see forever. A series of brilliant October days was taking place outside. Strong, thin sunlight, long shadows, the larch starting to turn up on Black Mountain. This was the time of year she loved, new beginnings and fresh pencil boxes. I would open the curtains sometimes to show her, but the light seemed painful to her. She seemed agitated and nervous with the sunlight through the window, and I soon closed the curtains again. For some reason, the curtains were open, though. I remember I was looking out the yellow larch high up on the mountain, vivid yellow against the evergreen. Then I felt the grip of a hand upon my wrist. "Tom," she said, "I need you." I looked down at the hand that held my wrist, the yellow discolored skin and the bones beneath, no flesh but bone, so thin, an old person's hand, though she wasn't old, not even 35. And there was the indentation of her ring, still marked on the flesh. I don't know where she found the strength to hold me so, but I could not escape her grasp, no matter how I tried to twist my hand. "I need your love," she said. "You have it. Then why are you trying to escape me?" She was right. I wanted nothing more than to get away from her, the wreckage of her. Her grip tight on my wrist, her cold finger on my pulse. I remember wondering where she found the strength to speak, but when I looked down, her face was indistinct, twilight, as if there were not enough light to see by, though it was clear day. Her face, I knew it couldn't be, but her face seemed like the one I knew before the sickness took it, and at the same time the thing the disease had left. I saw them superimposed on one another, the lovely face I had married and the thing that the disease had made of her, and I could not tell them apart. She was neither, she was both. I don't want to go alone, she said. I need you to come with me. I felt the cold then, from her finger to my blood, from my blood to my heart. I said, the children. You don't care about the children. I knew she was right as soon as she said it, and I felt a wave of shame that she was right. I did care, but not enough. You just wanted me better, she said. You just wanted me whole so we could have fun, so we could have sex. I wanted you to be who you were. I loved that person. But this is what I am. She held me tighter then, so tight around my wrist that her grip would not let the blood pass. The cold, the ebb of feeling. I looked down into her cloudy face again and saw her brown hair as it had been, and at the same time the stubble with the scalp showing through. I can't come with you, I said. You will, she said. I can't come now. You will, you will, you will, she said. You will. She took my hand in her two hands then and slipped the wedding ring from my finger as easily as taking off a glove, though it was so worn into my fingers. There were days when I couldn't get it off at all, and yet it came so easily to her. I saw the gleam of it, the shine of bright metal as she slipped it on her finger, and it fit. It fastened there. You were promised to me, she said. And with both her hands, she ripped the ring from the chain around my neck. The broken chain skittered across the floor, took my hand, and took her ring and slipped it on my finger, where it fit easily, despite being her ring, her tiny ring, her slim fingers. I looked down and saw her grinning at me, and through the grin, her teeth and the outline of her skull. This I could not bear. I looked up, and it was night out through the open curtains. Somehow the sun had gone down. The red numbers on the bedside clock said 2:45, and something else. It took me a minute to understand what, and then I heard the silence. The breathing had stopped. Did I wake or dream? I had slept. I must have slept and dreamt all this. The thought came as a great relief. I heard the nurses scurrying in the corridor outside. When I looked down, though, well, you know. She was buried with my ring. I wear her still. I have no choice, really. It won't come off by itself, and I won't have it sawn off. The peculiar thing is that even in water, even in summer, the gold never warms to my body. The coal stays on it. I like to think that mine is with her and warm, a reminder, if it matters, of the lovely short days we had. But I know her cold is always with me, the cold of my love, the cold of metal, the cold of the ground, where my bride awaits me.
The Phantom of the Mirror by McMahon.
You know, it's different being up here than it is being down there. We're all familiar with a theme that crops up occasionally in the spook story genre. The ghosts don't realize they're dead. They try to go on with life as usual, and they're baffled when people ignore them or otherwise behave in ways which seem to them bizarre. It's most often played for laughs. Caveat. Sure, when somebody dies, everyone else who's around usually knows it. But does it necessarily follow that the dead person knows it too? We don't have any proof of that, at least that I'm aware of. This has been on my mind more and more lately for a very good reason. Evidence keeps mounting that I, myself, have become one of those clownish wraiths, doomed to linger in the realm of the living, like a vitiated cocktail onion, sunk in the depths of an endlessly refilled Gibson martini, helpless either to flavor the drink or to make that final plunge down the drain of the great unknown. Take, for instance, my stepkids. I can't count the number of times when I've looked straight at them, told them something distinctly and repeatedly, and yet it soon becomes clear that they never heard a word I said. In general, young people tend to look right through me, and if I happen to make a remark that I personally think is witty and urbane, their eyes glaze over, as if a chill wind from beyond the grave has sprung up to numb their brains. Then there's the work I do as a writer. I have to ask myself, is there any substantive reality to all those manuscripts, queries, and emails that I think I've sent out, but have just disappeared into the void, never to be heard of again? The phone calls pleading for information, do they get routed to some spectral switchboard deep in the recesses of limbo and answered by some perky, disembodied voice? I'll pass that message on, sir, and I'm sure somebody will get back to you just as soon as they can. It's true that my inbox still gets hammered by ads for cut-rate Canadian Cialis, which I would like to think of as life-affirming. But let's face it, everybody gets those. Loath though I am to admit this, I've even started to wonder if my wife, whom I adore, is deceiving me. If she's the only one who can see me anymore, and she just doesn't have the heart to explain that back when we were doing our second-story remodel, I screwed up and ran the blade of my old metal-handled skill saw through a hot 220 line while I was plugged into a frayed cord and standing in a puddle. And they found me with my ears smoking and the fillings of my teeth melted. Or that my suspicions about the potential hazards of lighting up our Walmart bargain special made in China propane barbecue grill turned out to be dead on. For quite some time, strange as this may sound, my main anchor of consolation was the IRS. I reasoned that as long as they keep notifying me that I owe them money, which they do frequently, I must still be alive. But I've started to question my faith there too. I have no doubt that they'd pursue us all right on through eternity if they could figure out how, and maybe by now they have. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this in-between state of existence is all bad. Right off the top, nothing seems to hurt any worse than it used to. And there are pros as well as cons. If the lawn doesn't get mowed, is that my fault? Somebody around here has obviously been chipping at that pricey India Pale Ale my wife bought at Costco for her office party this coming Friday. But how could that be me? Upon occasion, it's even helped to put off telephone solicitors when I tell them I'm dead. Although most remain undeterred. Yes, sir, we appreciate your continued support. Now, if you could just confirm your new address starting with a phone number, area code 666, is that correct? Where to go from here, I don't know. A new job might help, but this isn't the greatest time to be looking anyway, and my qualifications don't make it any easier. How am I supposed to pass a physical? What if my references speak of me in past tense? I toyed briefly with trying to drum up interest in a surreality TV show, but backed off. No way could it touch what's already going on in that arena. At least I've started to accept that I've been in denial, and I'm trying to work through my issues. I've been looking for a support group to hook up with, but so far I've drawn a blank. It's not exactly the kind of thing you want to put on Facebook. Still, I believe that there is an ultimate plan, and that the hour of deliverance will eventually come for us all. Even if it does often seem that while our roles were being written in the great script of destiny, a cosmic thumb accidentally hit the type-over key. Kick back and take it one day at a time, I tell myself, just one phantasmagorical day at a time. Thank you all.
We'll get there when we get there. By Roger Hedde.
Madeline, 26 years old, is driving at night with her 6-year-old son Andy beside her. Where are we going?
The lake.
Mom?
Yes.
Are we going to stop?
Do you need to go to the bathroom?
No.
We'll stop when you need to.
When I need to go.
Yes.
Okay. How far away is it?
We'll be there any time, honey. Just tell me when you need to go to the bathroom.
And we'll stop.
Yes.
I kind of need to go.
You don't really need to go, do you?
No.
I can go to the bathroom by myself. You don't need to come in.
I know that. Now, why don't you sleep until you really have to go?
I'm not sleepy. I'm not.
Are you scared?
No.
It's all right to be a little scared. It's night.
Okay. Are we going to the war?
No. The war is not. We're never going to the war. We're just driving. We're going on a drive.
Are we going to see somebody?
No. We might see your grandparents sometime soon, but not now. It's just us now.
Which grandparents?
Your daddy's parents. You remember we can't see mine. They're not here anymore. But they loved you a whole lot.
Where are they?
They're with your daddy.
In the war?
In heaven.
Oh.
Why don't you close your eyes and think about heaven?
Mom.
Come on, Andy. Close your eyes. Mommy's tired. You must be tired.
I'm not.
Close your eyes and you will be. For Mommy. Please.
Okay.
Good. Thank you. Now go to sleep.
Mom?
Go to sleep.
Mom?
Go to sleep.
Mom?
Sweet dreams.
Madeline?
Andy, go to sleep. And you call me Mommy. Madeline's for grown-ups.
It's not Andy, Madeline.
Oh, God.
It's me.
No.
It's Michael.
No.
It is.
How? How are you here?
I guess because it's important.
I'm not dreaming.
You're not. You're driving with our son. You're driving at night. You're driving to the lake.
I am.
You're going to leave him with my parents.
I don't know.
They're not good people, Maddie. You know that. They're why I couldn't wait to sign up.
They're better than me.
No.
You didn't have to keep re-enlisting. You had us.
I was coming home when it was done.
Your part was done. You did your share.
My brothers, Maddie, they were my brothers. I couldn't leave them.
Bullshit. It wasn't that, the Brotherhood. It was E5, E6, one more tour, and I could be E7, Sergeant First Class. Michael Taylor, Sergeant First Class. That would show everyone.
For us.
For you. You would have stayed home if you were thinking about us, if you loved us. I begged you.
I do love you. The both of you.
Maybe you did, but you're not here anymore.
Don't drive to the lake.
That's not what you're back to tell me, Sergeant.
Don't drive into the lake.
You made your decision. You went back. Now I make the decisions. The family decisions.
Don't.
Go away. Really. Go back to wherever you are now. Go. Go. I don't believe in ghosts.
Mommy?
Andy?
Who were you talking to?
Your daddy.
But he's not here anymore.
He's not. But we'll be seeing him soon.
Scary Night Radio by Debra Magpie Earling.
Some of my friends tell me they don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in Brad Pitt. I've never seen him. I don't believe that George Clooney is going to take a wife and get married. I'm telling you a story tonight that, and I wear a veil because I'd like you to turn off the lights because dark things come. You turn off that light that's on me. Turn it way down. I don't need any notes because this story is true. You don't need to believe in ghosts. You don't need to believe that this story is true because it happened. A few years ago, I took a small leave of absence from the University of Montana to finish my novel. I was going to meet Robert, and he lives in a valley that is surrounded by canyons. A beautiful but somehow inhospitable place at times. The house that he lived in was situated at the mouth of a canyon. 20 miles behind the house was reclaimed wilderness. There were old outbuildings. At one time it had been a working ranch, I suppose, a small ranch. But it had been abandoned for 8 years and he had moved in. When I first arrived, I knew there was something foreboding about the house, something dark. I couldn't lighten the house. No matter how I rearranged the furniture, no matter what I did, I couldn't make it any friendlier. It had that sense of unhappiness. It had something more, something darker. But I was happy. I was happy to be with Robert. was happy to be home with him. When he went to work the first day that I arrived, or the second day after I had arrived, I decided I was going to take a little trip up behind the house, investigate. We had no neighbors around for miles. We were 5 miles out of town, and I was alone in the house. The ranch house was kind of a curious place, a place that had only linoleum floors, a large fireplace, but an open floor plan. It was difficult to fill that space. I remember that day I found myself wanting to take a little walk, a rider's walk, something to clear my mind before I began riding, and I walked behind the house. I walked up behind the fields, and I found myself lost that day. The whole day was gone, and what I discovered was a skeleton of a horse, a complete skeleton of a horse, and I was fascinated by this, and I grabbed the skeleton the horse head, and it was black with dry moss. So I painted it and took it into the house, and I hung it above the fireplace, and I thought it looked great. Robert came home and he said, you should remove that. You should take that down. It's not right. Of course, I didn't listen to him. I wanted it up. I've always wanted a skull above the fireplace. I thought it looked rustic and made it seem really Western. A couple days later, Robert had to leave. He had business in Salem. And so I was left alone in the house, and I'm okay with being left alone. I'm not a scaredy cat. I'm not afraid of things. And I found myself enjoying the day. There was peace in the day. And when night came, around 11 o'clock, I decided I would go to bed. And I went to bed. And then I heard the house settling, and there was a quiet to the house. And I started thinking, wow, I'm really all alone here. There's no one here, no one but me. And 20 miles behind me, people once occupied that space, but now there's nothing but elk, there's nothing but rattlers, there's nothing but maybe something else back there, something scarier. But I tried to not think about that. I pushed it out of my head, and I kind of was pulling the covers up around me when I heard a thumping at the door and realized it was the pack rats in the attic. And my heart was pounding, and I pulled the covers up over my head and decided I would just sleep and turn off all the noise that was going on. And then the radio came on. And I tried to ignore it. I pulled the covers tighter around my head. But the radio got louder. But it was strange, and I was angry and got up out of bed, and I thought, Robert has left the radio on, and I didn't know what time it was. But then when I found myself in the middle of the living room, in that open space in the darkness, there was a small red light, a night light on. And I remember Robert had told me, be careful because we have mice in here. We have rattlers all around, and they could be in the room. I remember that scared me more than the radio coming on. And as I was walking toward the radio, it suddenly shut off. And I turned around, and I was going back to bed when the radio came on again. And as I turned and stood in that living room, that shining linoleum floor, that red light, I had the strangest feeling that something or someone had wanted me out in the middle of that room. So I went to the radio, and it was playing the strangest music. It wasn't music that you would ever hear. It was calliope music, strange and sort of distant and far away, and I pulled the plug. And as I got back to the door, the radio came on again. I went to bed. I said, I don't believe this. I'm not going to believe this. The next morning was happy. It was a good day. But Robert had to go away. He had to go back to Salem for some business, and I was going to be alone in the house for 3 days, and it didn't bother me. It didn't bother me really. And one afternoon I was really happy. The snow was falling. It was a cold winter day. And I was writing. And I was looking out the window, and I was feeling really good. And you can believe this or not, but I felt something over my left shoulder. And it seemed like it was a hand, but it wasn't unkind. And then I heard a voice that seemed to be coming from within me, and a voice that was also outside of me. And I would pull your veils up now or cover your head. Because the voice whispered to me, and it wasn't my voice. And the voice said, "Go hang yourself. Hang yourself." And I stopped, and I looked around, and the voice came again, a little louder this time, but still whispering, a male voice, a man's voice. "Go hang yourself." Hang yourselves. And I grabbed my chest, and I patted myself. I'd had difficulty in the past, but believe me, if I was going to kill myself, it certainly would not be by hanging myself. And I remember there was something about that voice. It was inviting. It wasn't frightening. And I looked up then. And I looked up in that room where I was writing, and above me were all of these beams, these open beams. And I thought, it would be easy to hang myself here. And I went back to writing. I thought I would forget about it, not say anything to Robert. One night he went to visit his family, and I decided to stay home, and I built a cozy fire, and I was sleeping by the fireplace. I had the light on, I'd been reading, and I fell asleep, and I woke up. There was a sound like if somebody was running toward me. It sounded like a thundering, and then the voice was low and right at my face, and it said, "Debra, Debra, Debra, go hang yourself. Go hang yourself now." And I was scared. And I called Robert, and I just told him to come home. I just wanted some company. Didn't want to be alone, and I didn't tell him what had happened. Things seemed pretty easy for a while, and then one day, I was writing again, and it was a cold day, and the snow was coming again. The snow was falling. And I looked out the window, and the voice came again. The voice more insistent this time. "Go hang yourself. Go hang yourself, Debra. Go hang yourself now. Now. And I don't know what happened to me, but it seemed very inviting. The thought of hanging yourself. How pleasant it would be to leave this world and all its cares. To hang myself. I got up, and I put on Robert's boots. I didn't have time to even put on my own coat. I put on his, and I walked outside, and I walked to the place where we kept the wood pile. It was a huge shed, and I knew up at the top of that shed there were ropes, many ropes. I told myself I was going to climb up there. And I started climbing, and it was cold, and the wind was blowing. And I found myself up at the top, and I was looking out over the rafters, and I was thinking, wondering where I was going to tie myself up so I could hang myself. Suddenly it came to me. What the hell are you doing? Climb down now. Go back inside. You're happy. And I jumped down and I ran back into the house and I thought, I am not going to say anything to Robert. I didn't want to disturb him, and I'm hearing voices and I'm going crazy and I'm not going to tell him. A few years later, Robert moved to Missoula. Such a happy time, and one night we were sitting outside and we were being bad. We were having a cigarette. We were drinking. Maybe it was a drink, and I decided, he confessed something to me. He told me, you remember that skull you hung over the fireplace? I said, yeah, and he said, well, the reason I didn't want it up there was because there was a bullet hole in it. Somebody had shot that horse. It wasn't a good thing. And then I don't know what happened, but I found myself telling Robert. I wasn't depressed, Robert, I really wasn't. But I heard this insistent voice. It was a man's voice, and it was low and dark, and it kept telling me to hang myself. It kept telling me to hang myself over and over again, and I found myself tying little nooses, and I found myself thinking about killing myself. And I said, I'm so sorry, I was so happy. I really am so sorry. And I was kind of confessing and looking down, and then I turned to see Robert, and his face was, his eyes were open, his mouth was open, and he said, Debra, I had the same thing happen to me. I heard that voice. I went to John Day, and I even thought about buying ropes, and I looked at Robert, and I knew he's never been depressed or talked about killing himself, and it occurred to me something was really terribly wrong. And even now, after all those years, sometimes I think about that skull, that white skull, hanging over the fireplace. A few short months later, I don't know why nobody told us this or failed to tell us this. The man who had lived in the house, the reason why the house was empty for 8 years, the reason why no one lived there, why only pack rats and rattlesnakes, and cottontails and bull snakes, elk thudded through the yard. It was a man who had been in the house, had hanged himself.
Was that not amazing? Our great thanks to Mayor John Engen, to Russ Nasset, to Kevin Canty, to Neil McMahon, to Roger Hedde and the 2 amazing actors who performed his play, and to Debra Magpie Earling. And most of all, thank you, lovers of literature. We are so happy to have had another great year. We can't wait to see you again next year. The dates next year, October 5th through the 7th.